My name is Jelelle Awen, and this is day 5 of 33 days of Metamorphosis with me. And we've already, I think, covered some interesting grounds together. We've felt into the new year energies, and I actually can't recap right now because I can't remember. But I can feel it in my heart, and based on your responses, it's been very touching to me how it's landed for you and how you're taking it in. Really, what we're offering with SoulFullHeart has a lot of layers to it, and ultimately it's a new way of seeing and feeling and being in life. And it takes time to calibrate to it. So souls will feel a resonance with certain aspects, and then as they go in a bit deeper, they start feeling how, whoa, this applies to all areas of life. They're talking about every area of life, not just spirituality, and not just emotional healing, and not just ascension. And of course, ascension happens to all areas of our lives, not just one area. And parts of us would like it sometimes to be just one area, and it can be compartmentalized as such for a while, where maybe just your spirituality is awakening or shifting, and it's mostly private, maybe. And if you're in a relationship where you're may not be awakening with you, then that can be compartmentalized for a while, where it's almost like I call it kind of being in a spiritual closet. And also compartmentalized often is emotion from spirituality. So your emotional reality, your emotional body, your feeling states, and your reactions are separated from your spirituality, and your spirituality can be used by parts of you to not feel and to numb feeling, which is often what we call bypassing, what is commonly called bypassing, actually, becoming more common that people are recognizing this. So we actually look at 7 areas of life in SoulFullHeart, and I named 2 of them already, or 3 of them, the spiritual, emotional, social, but we also look at financial, environmental, mental, and physical. There's a lot of juice there in those 7 areas. So rather than go into them today, I really encourage you to check out a video series that SoulFullHeart facilitators and my beloveds Gabriel and Kalena are doing about the 7 areas of life, where they cover all of them in this wonderful way. They're sharing their own processes too in digestion of all of them. And they start with social, which is usually the most charged, the one with the most feeling, and the one that creates the most reaction for parts of us. And so they're not just teaching from an academic level, but they're also offering their personal processes around it. So I think you will find that very nourishing and interesting to take in with them. So what I wanted to talk about today, so there's that lens, there's the 7 areas of life lens that we offer. There's also the parts, which I've been talking about, already introducing you to your inner protector and your inner teenager. We also work with an inner punisher, also called a critic, although when you first meet them, they're usually more of a punisher. Also the inner mother or father, inner child. These are some parts that are usually anchored to more 3D energies. So that's where we start our work with you, in our SoulFullHeart process during sessions. So the other lens, though, besides the 7 areas and the parts, is the consciousness states of 3D, 4D, and 5D. If you're watching these videos, you're probably pretty familiar with what we mean by this. Although I kind of have downloaded my own version of what these mean, and I will share in the description a link to an article you can read that describes 3D, 4D, and 5D self in each of the 7 areas. That's where we start our process with you actually in sessions. So you can read that writing and get a good sense for where we might go with you if you decide you would like to try sessions. And you're really looking at this consciousness, the 3D, third dimensional consciousness, fourth dimensional, and fifth dimensional. And, there's this delineation going on that the mind and parts of us just need, when in actuality it's much more fluid than that. So we recognize that, and that there's also not 7 distinct areas of life. And yet this differentiation, this delineation can really help with navigating what can feel like a great big soup. Of reactivity, of emotion, of unhappiness and suffering at times, of overwhelm and anxiety, of isolation and loneliness. This is also the ascension process. All of these frequencies that are so challenging, and how do we navigate? How do we navigate this? And we offer a how, and starting to look at life, feel life, be in life from these different framings. So I wanted to introduce you today to this framing of the 3D, 4D, and 5D self, and the parts that make that up. So the 3D self, you can get a pretty good idea. The majority of that energy, at least in the beginning of the differentiation process, is the inner protector. So you could start feeling, and some of you have been sharing that you're already starting to feel your protector. And one of the ways you can feel this, I've had people say, oh, I felt my guard go up. I felt protective of myself. I felt defensive. Those are some frequencies of the protector for sure. If you've been awakening for a while, they're probably more subtle for you than they are for other people. The protector is really the vigilant, loyal guard. Always has a masculine energy. Even if it doesn't present as masculine, it's usually then a more feminine warrior energy. They're usually armored, head to toe. I'm saying this after years of meeting them and working with them. And of course they have to have this armor, right? They have to armor themselves up in order to help you live in 3D life, and especially when you were a little baby. So you can I feel like they're a part inside of us, but you can also do a visualization of imagining your protector as a guard in the room of your inner teenager, for example, or a guard in the room of your inner feminine. And what is he like? What's his energy like? And you can begin this differentiation just, I'm going to share these in the description, but these are some questions that we ask you in the process as well. How have you felt the energy of protection over you in your life? In what situations do you feel this guarding energy come up? What do you feel could be the benefits of connecting with your inner protector? What are your concerns about connecting with your inner protector? What kind of relationship would you like to have with your inner protector? So again, I'll share these in the description, and I strongly invite you, encourage you to engage with them. This makes this video series more of an activity for you. And your answers to this, what are your concerns, what are your desires? Your answers start separating you from the protector. You can see that, right? Because you is saying, I want to get to know this part of me. I feel like it puts a guard up in my relationships, for example. Or if you haven't been in a romantic relationship for a while, that's probably your protector in some sort of lockdown place around that. So you can feel that and what you desire around a deeper connection romantically, and also soul family, and also friendships. In that area, the social area is usually the one for which the protector is the most vigilantly guarding, like I said earlier. Because there's lots of reason to guard you in this area. It's usually also the area for which you experience the most hurt and the most harm. And this goes back to childhood. Really, that's in the process, that's where we take you. And into childhood, for the parts of you, is a present timeline. It's in the now. It's parts and the emotional body don't operate in linear time. So you may, our 3D conditioning is kind of like, why would you be hung up on something that happened when you were 10? That was so long ago. Well, to the emotional body and these parts, it wasn't so long ago. It's still happening. The energy, I experience this when I feel it in people and when I felt it in myself, as this kind of pulsing frequency that is very much active, very much current, and very much going on in the now. So this is another shift for you to start thinking, start feeling, is this piece about there really is no past that way. These things are in the moment, in the now. This also relates to what people call past lives, which we will be getting into in this series. And what we feel are actually, access to them is available in the now, and these are just other timelines and parallel. So you begin to shift from more of a linear way of relating with what's happened to you and your life and your expressions to a more multi-dimensional way, that you realize these things are weaving and merging and layering on every moment. It's quite an awakening. And when you really start feeling this protection energy, for example, and almost always, I mentioned this the other day, this protector sees you as a teenager. I can almost promise you. This isn't the you so much that you think you are, sitting here, watching this. But when you connect to your protector energy, and really all it takes is your intention to do so, he starts looking back at you. And if you ask him, let's just say him, if you ask him, how do you see me? He'll say, oh, you're a teenager. Or sometimes you're a child that I have to protect all the time because you're too sensitive and vulnerable and fragile. And it's a little shocking. No, I'm an adult. I'm mature. I'm awakening. And the protector doesn't see that. He has his own reality filtering that has been compartmentalized. I'm doing this because it's like a bubble. If you think of a guard energy, it's a shield. And in creating that shield, I think the consciousness of this protector part gets also shielded off. He's very often not current with your growth and your awakening. So your awakened self, we call it in SoulFullHeart your 5D self, has to bridge to this energy. So if you imagine your protector as like this bubbling energy around you, and here's you in your 5D selfness, You have to extend your awakened energy to this part, to this protector, in order to move the frequency of him and his guardedness. So you're kind of reaching out to him, and it takes time and process for him to start dropping this guard. And most people aren't at all conscious of this guard in themselves, especially spiritual people. They would say they're very open-hearted probably, or very free and loving, and yet if you get deeper into their lives, you would probably discover areas where they are part of them is defensive and guarded and perhaps not vulnerable whatsoever, maybe very spiritual. But spirituality does not necessarily or even very often equate to vulnerability. Vulnerability is something that is possible through this 5D self, through the healing of the inner child, which you can't get to, in my sense, unless you have negotiated with this protective energy. I think there's a lot more about the inner child lately, and the meditations to connect with it and that kind of thing. And I think you can access some energy frequencies, yet the true essence of the inner child is quite buried, in my experience. And that protector is right there at the door. And to get to your inner child, you have to get through the guard. And if you don't, the access may be temporary at best, or an off-gassing. I think often people are accessing off-gassing energies. Sometimes parts like to feel, oh, I did this inner child meditation and my inner child is completely healed now. Or I've released it all, I cleared it all. I let ascension energies in and I'm totally cleared now. And I would offer that it did not take one day or one process or one time for this wounding and pain and mess to happen. It took many moments and many times, and not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes, for this to build up and be constructed and to exist. So, this is a process. This is layer by layer, part by part, to negotiate and navigate your way through to an increasingly clearer and embodied and grounded frequency. This is not necessarily a popular answer, and yet in my integrity, I can't give a different answer than this one. And that's not why I'm here. So we don't offer in SoulFullHeart quick fixes. We don't offer one energy session and we're going to clear all of your karma and upgrade all your DNA. And we've been asked to do this. People have offered us money to do this. I've been offered money quite a bit. I probably would have a lot more sessions with people than I do if I would just go in there into your system and do a bunch of things and clear a bunch of things out. And I see many, many healers that offer this work. I'm here to offer something different. We're here to offer something different with SoulFullHeart, and to acknowledge these parts of us that know that this is a process. They're very aware of this. Sometimes they let you do the other healings. Maybe you get some results. From what I've experienced with people that I've worked with is that often on the other side of these experiences can be quite a bit of trauma, especially for the inner child, who feels really almost energetically violated by some of these processes that are going on. And just, what about me and my reality? I'm really sad and lonely and nobody asked me how I was doing. Or the protector feels very violated because it didn't get asked. It didn't get negotiated with about this. Are you okay with these intense energies coming from another human being into your field? This doesn't get asked, right? So it's often parts of us in this quest to heal. Really, it's a quest to fix, though, instead. When we offer, it's a much more feminine. Divine Mother has a lot of patience. When you think of gestation, when you're, the process of gestation, of birthing a baby, or you have to create a nest, you have to create a home for that baby to grow. This doesn't happen overnight. And this is the same piece that happens in this process that I'm offering today, is that protector, it's going to take time. You have to create a home for him to begin to talk to you, for him to feel safe enough to talk with you, for him to actually trust that you're not going anywhere, that you don't want to fix him, and that you're not going to bring in a bunch of intense energies to try to push him out, but actually sit with him. And some of the other questions that I'm going to share with you in the description are going to be about the 5D self. I'm going to leave the 4D self for now, because maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. The 5D self questions really allow you to start feeling, how would you describe your 5D self? Your awakened self, your most authentic self, your most open-hearted self. I'm giving some ways you could describe it. One of the things you can think about is what in your life supports your 5D self to express? What in your life limits your 5D self from expressing? What spiritual activities support the growth and expression of your 5D self? When do you feel the most like your 5D self or your authentic you? What gets in the way of you being your most 5D self, your most authentic self? So again, I'll share these questions, and I really encourage you to answer both about the 3D self and the protector, starting to get into that energy, identifying that energy, and your 5D self as well, because it's the 5D self that holds the space for this exploration, and it's the 5D self that you increasingly become as you identify, differentiate, and separate from the 3D self. This is the goal, right, of this whole process, is more and more 5D self, so that this, you could also call your 5D self your sacred human self, what I call sacred humanity, which does include feeling, which does include gender expression, which is an embodied frequency that operates, that moves through all areas of your life, not just certain areas, like I said earlier, but all areas. So I'm going to leave you with that for today to digest and take in, and I think the journaling will take you somewhere beautiful. I'm going to share a link to a Inner Protector group call that we've done with a guided meditation component to it. So you can take in more teachings from, I believe, Raphael and I, and then engage with the meditation and see if you see your protector and what they are like and what they feel like, and all kinds of magic can open out from there. Thank you for joining me today.